Say in your mind, say to yourself, I am more than my physical body. Because I am more than physical matter, I can perceive that which is greater than the physical world. I deeply desire to expand, to experience, to know, to understand, to control, to use such greater energies and energy systems as may be beneficial and constructive to me and to those who follow me. I deeply desire the help and cooperation, the assistance, the understanding of those individuals whose wisdom, development, and experience are equal to or greater than my own. I ask their guidance and protection from any influence or any source that might provide me with less than my stated desires.
I do not know all the answers to the questions about reality. I do not claim to know the ultimate truth about life. I seek that which has been made hidden as a part of a family that explores the consciousness. I am the void one.
Welcome to Lighting the Void.
Oh, broadcasting live from a shack on a hill in the Mossy Creek bottoms of Cane Creek, Arkansas. This is Lighting the Void live. We're here on Fringe.fm, KTLK Digital Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, and the Paranormal Radio app as well, and Live 365 app. If you want to watch the video, you can hop on over to Lighting the Void YouTube. So I'm hoping tonight we're going to finish our Astral Doorways section so far that we went over in this book. If you went and got the book, I think it's a pretty good book. I think it's a good book as far as esoteric introductions go to how to travel or have, I guess, do astral methods the occult way. So we've talked about the tatwas, the elemental doorways. We talked about the tarot, the Kabbalistic tree of life, how to protect yourself, all of that stuff, which I think is really cool. That this book, the coolest part about this is this book was written back in the 70s. Yeah, that's the coolest part to me. So the call-in number tonight, if you want to call in, is 501-777-5631. As always, you can call in and chime in. And you can always chime in the chat, too. What's up? I want to say hey to Bryce. I always say hey to everybody that jumps in right off the bat. Bryce, Barefoot Hippies, Michael, Joyce, and anybody else I'm missing that hasn't said hey yet. Sorry about the late start, but I had to run to the store, plus the website. The website is every now and then gets under attack, and the reason why we pay for such an expensive server is to block those attacks, and it always shows me how many has been blocked, and for some reason there's one that has taken it down 2 or 3 times and is trying to do it again. So who knows? I don't know why anybody would even do that. Like, what's the purpose of it, really? You know, what are you going to get out of it? Because we're just going to fix it and put it back up. Like, who wastes their time with that kind of stuff? I'll never know, you know, ever. But whatever. Like, there's nothing I can do about it other than pay the people that know what they're doing to fix it. All right. So let's jump into this. The next part of this text is called the Oriental Doorways. And I think he's going to go into the I Ching here. Now, remember when Mary was on, we talked about this. We said that the I Ching was the oldest divination tool. And Terrence McKenna also believed that it was accurate. And he had, I think, here we go again. I think he had this time wave zero thing theory about it. But here's the quote from Carl Jung. It says, "It is a dubious task indeed to try to introduce to a critical modern public a collection of archaic magic spells with the idea of making them more or less acceptable. I have undertaken it because I myself think there is more to the ancient Chinese way of thinking than meets the eye." So he goes on to say that there was also more to the I Ching than met my eye when I started using it. Me too. It blew me away how accurate it was, actually. The book is Chinese and older in origin than ever our mysterious wrath. Its doctrines predate Confucianism and Taoism and influence the development of both. For millenniums, the I Ching, or also it's called the Book of Changes, has been used throughout China as an oracle. This is not quite the same as saying it was used for fortune telling. Although its usage may have grown degenerate at times, the importance of the work is its curious ability to interpret the meaning of the moment and offer wise counsel from this basis. In his foreword to the English language edition of Richard Wilhelm's translation, the psychologist Carl Jung puts forward some interesting ideas about why the book works. He sees a connection between the mechanics of the oracle and synchronistic phenomena. The Chinese, who used the book for centuries, were less sophisticated. Their tradition held that spiritual agencies were involved. They approached the book with reverence as though it were a person, and as a person, the book replied. I didn't know that. So they looked at the book like it was a dude or a chick or a being that would reply to them as they used it. So since both Carl Jung and the Chinese sages got results from it, the viewpoint appears to be quite unimportant. To work the oracle, 3 coins or 50 yarrow sticks are needed. I use coins. I don't use sticks. Either can be used to build up hexagrams based on the ancient Oriental principle of the yin and the yang. The yin and the yang are 2 great complementary aspects of creation. The negative and the positive, the female and the male, the dark and the light, etc. The coin oracle, which is the easier to use, works like this. So you formulate your question, and for preference, write it down. Then you toss the coins and note whether they come down to heads or tails. A head counts as a yin and carries the value of 2. Tails are yang and carry and represent a value of 3. Add up the 3 values to produce a total. This will obviously be 6, 3 yins, 9, 3 yangs, 7, 2 yins and a yang, or 8, 2 yangs and a yin. Each total represents a yin or a yang line, moving or at rest. And you could look this up on YouTube. Some are old yin and old yang, depending on, the toss. So you toss the coins actually 6 times in all, adding each new line above the last one obtained. And the result is a figure of 6 lines, broken and unbroken, known as a hexagram. It's kind of funny how hexagrams tend to work in all of this stuff, right? The hexagram is then interpreted with the aid of the Book of Changes. Should old lines appear as part of its structure, the hexagram is first interpreted normally, then the old lines are changed into their opposites, i.e. an old yin becomes a young yang and an old yang a young yin, and the new hexagram is interpreted as well. With the yarrow stick oracle, you leave 1 stalk aside and divide the remainder at random into 2 bunches. 1 stalk is taken from the right hand heap and placed between the little and ring fingers of the left hand. The entire left hand pile is then placed in the left hand and counted off by 4s until 4 or less stalks are left in the hand. Those remaining are placed between the ring finger and the middle finger, and the right-hand pile is then counted off in the same way. So he kind of goes on to explain all of what each, I guess you could say, toss is going to be, kind of like he explained, explains the tarot. And he goes into big detail here. So you got to get the book, or just get the book of changes if you want to look at all the tosses, though. And he says, the reason why I have gone into so much detail rather than simply suggesting you buy the book is that the I Ching was not always consulted as it is now. Around 1150 BC, King Wen and his son, the Duke of Chao, fixed set interpretations for the hexagrams for the first time. These interpretations were subsequently enlarged and extended by later sages until the book emerged in its present form. But prior to the advent of King Wen, it appears that each man consulting the oracle interpreted the hexagrams in his or her own way. That is, they used their intuition. You may be sure that the I Ching produced results in this manner too, otherwise the system would not have survived. And this leads me to the conclusion that more was involved in the early days than intuition alone. It seems likely that the hexagrams perhaps exhibited an archetypal nature and acted as triggers to sensitive minds. They opened up unconscious doorways to insights and perhaps prognostications. Where a trigger mechanism of this kind exists, you may also be sure an astral doorway is not far away. This conclusion is borne out by the American writer William Seabrook. Never heard of him. A cynic, but fascinated nonetheless by the occult, Seabrook discovered a method for using the hexagrams as astral doorways. High degrees of concentration and visualization are needed, more so than the other doorways mentioned. The trouble is that using the oriental doorways is a waiting game. Beyond a certain stage, the whole thing is out of your control. First, you find your hexagram, and Seabrook talks about throwing the sticks like dice to form a pattern. I find this frankly incomprehensible, since it's unlikely you'll have 50 yarrow sticks on hand, so use the coins. Follow the instructions, then look up its title. See what you can make of that, if anything. And when you have meditated for a while on this title, seat yourself in a traditional Eastern manner, that is, either cross-legged or squatting on your heels. Pick the most comfortable one for yourself, because you're likely to be in the position for quite some time. Now visualize a door, and on the door, visualize the hexagram the oracle has given to you. Well, that's interesting. See, this is all new to me. I mean, the tatwas, the tarot, the tatwas, and the Kabbalah aren't, but this is pretty new to me. I didn't know you could use this for like astral doorways. This may not be easy, but keep trying until the mental picture clears, then wait. With the I Ching doorways, there is no other knack for passing through than patience. You must wait until the doorway opens of its own accord. This is something that cannot be forced unless you want to throw away the chance of reasonable results. It may take 20 minutes or an hour or several hours, but when it happens, congratulate yourself and go through. As you will find from the experiment, the various doorways have their own properties and bring their own visions. The Oriental doorways are no exception. Possibly because of the long wait usually involved, coupled with the physical discomfort of maintaining your position and the mental effort of holding your visualization. The likelihood of trance is greatly increased by this method. Do you honestly think that anybody in the West could pull this off, though? Like, I don't. I mean, we're too fidgety for this, man. But it is pretty cool, if we could. Let's see. There seems to be a greater chance of identification with some element in the vision. Seabrook, for instance, records the case of a Russian woman who passed through doorway number 49. What is number 49? Number 49 is revolution or molting. Okay. And she began to exhibit the personality characteristics of a wolf, even to the extent of attacking her fellow experimenters. Huh. In view of this, the Oriental doorways may prove extremely dangerous to some, but they are also extremely versatile. A little thought will show you just how interesting they could become. Man, I would think, here's the thing. I would think if someone was using the I Ching to move around astrally, and they sat there for, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes or whatever, and then turned into a wolf and started attacking people, I wouldn't really call that healthy. You know, I don't seem healthy to me. I'd be like, something's going on here. And if anybody ever catches you doing that, you can bet that they're going to lock you up, man. They're going to put you in one of those, a padded room. What's up, word salad? I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying, if this happens to you, make sure you're in the company of people that aren't going to call the hospital on you. Okay? Don't be, something ain't right about that is what I'm saying. I've seen weirder stuff. So in view of this, the Oriental doorways may prove extremely dangerous to some, but they're also extremely versatile. A little thought will show you just how interesting they could become. For a start, you're not confined to selecting a random hexagram. The I Ching is primarily an oracle and should be used as such. Formulate your question, cast the coins with that question in mind, and accept your vision as the answer. It can also be a fascinating exercise to check your visions against the Wen Shao interpretations should you buy a copy of the book. In theory, how far you can go with this technique is limited only by the boundaries of the astral plane, and these horizons may be broader than the orthodox psychology would allow. I'm going to say I'm probably not going to use that method. If you've got chicks turning into wolves or whatever, I'm not doing it. Plus, I've already done the asana stuff, right? Where the meditations that you just get in these positions and you just try not to move. You do your best not to move, like if you got a scratch or an itch, or you just don't move. But it does teach you how to relax, and it does help you get into trance. But at first, when you start doing this stuff, it is excruciating. Honestly, if you're doing it right, it's a little bit excruciating. All right, next section, hypnosis and the astral plane. So here's a quote from Franz Barden in the book Initiation into Hermetics. The adept who sees his way about this plane may find everything there, no matter the point in question, be in the past, the present, or the future. Although not a doorway in the strictest sense of the term, hypnosis is a major key to the astral plane. Whether used alone or in conjunction with one of the doorways mentioned previously, it can produce striking results. But it has one big drawback. Not everyone can be hypnotized. For useful work on the astral plane especially, your subject must reach medium, and for preference should reach deep trance levels. This cuts potential cooperation by more than half. About 25% of subjects are capable of reaching medium-level trances. Only 20% will reach deep trances. And as far as I can see, the only way of finding that fruitful 20% is by trial and error. Even if a subject can reach deep trance, your problems are not over. He may not be interested in the astral experiments, and worse still, he may be so interested that his mind will throw up all sorts of lunatic occult fantasies to confuse the picture. In 2 years of consistent experiments, I found only 4 really useful subjects, and considered myself lucky at that. One was a company director named Arthur Gibson. One was a shop assistant named Denise Alexander. Okay, well, he's saying their first and last names, which is kind of, that's weird to me. But this was written in the 70s, so I don't know. Most people don't want you revealing who they are in the book, but whatever. One was a merchant seaman named Sam Gordon. They sound so made up, don't they? And the fourth, already mentioned in this book, was Bia Van Vliet. With these 4, it became obvious that the astral plane extends beyond the bounds of common sense. In the days of Mesmer, it was generally thought hypnosis was induced by some subtle influence emanating from the hypnotist. Today, it seems much more likely that the subject really does the trick. Horror stories apart, nobody is hypnotized against their will. He is first taught briefly how to relax, then taught how to sink into trance. The process is reinforced by suggestion, and the hypnotist's personality plays an important part. But even here, it is the subject's reaction to the hypnotist, his confidence in the hypnotist's ability and integrity, that makes the real difference between success and failure. This means that potentially anyone can become a hypnotist. Your only real problem is convincing others that you know what you're doing. There are some dangers in hypnosis, but these have generally been overstated. If you begin to practice this art, you will be asked time out of number, what happens if you can't wake me up? I wonder if people really believe that. What happens if I get stuck? Like if I get stuck under all this stuff, man, am I just going to be stuck? The answer is simple. I'll just put you to bed. Left alone, subjects in trance tend to pass eventually into normal sleep and wake up naturally a few hours later. That's nothing like those movies, like when we watched, what was it? Encounters of the Third Kind or whatever, when those people go so far into trance they get stuck. Yeah. I don't know if that's real or not, but I'm fascinated by hypnotism. Like a lot of the audios that I do are path workings and trance states. You know, it's all the same stuff. It may be reassuring to know that only once have I had any difficulty in waking a subject, and even here total alertness was delayed less than half a minute. A very real danger does exist when it comes to making suggestions to a subject. These have a tendency to stick longer than you might like. A textbook example is the case of a man who sought psychiatric help because of a persistent feeling he was being followed. He started getting paranoid. In probing the man's background, the psychiatrist found he had recently been hypnotized. And during trance, the suggestion was given that he was being chased by a savage dog. The subject reacted positively and showed every sign of fright. That's not a positive reaction, though. But the suggestion was never countermanded. When the subject awoke, he forgot the hypnotic experience. The original suggestion, however, remained in his unconscious mind and subsequently came out in the form of his obsession. Yeah, I mean, let's just say this, man. Whoever you're going to, I think hypnotism is really good, especially if you're trying to fix stuff, you know, like losing weight or smoking, relationship stuff, or childhood issues, things like that. I think it really works. But where I totally agree with him on is that you should do your research on who's hypnotizing you, especially if you're a woman, all right? Like, I'm not going to lie to you folks, man. I've met some creepy dudes in this realm, all right? None of them have been on the radio show. I'll tell you that. They just haven't been. Well, maybe one was, but most of them haven't. So a lot of these guys, and it's always guys, I've never seen women do this, but some guys will get into the occult or join orders or become even hypnotists sometimes to try to get closer to women. Do you understand what I'm saying? And this is not me blasting the occult or blasting the esoteric. This is just me telling you to be careful because we talked about this in psychic self-defense. You could find this in the church, anywhere, but the reason why I'm warning you about this with hypnotism is because the unconscious is a powerful thing. So let's say you go to a hypnotist who is like, let's say he's a narcissist. So he's only kind and generous to you to get something out of the deal, that kind of person, pretty self-centered, etc. Then you start telling them about your problems and the things that you want to overcome. And you haven't done your research on this person. So they start hypnotizing you and start auto-suggesting things into your mind. And I've seen this and heard about this happening too, where you'll break up with a relationship. You'll start feeling closer or attracted to them, stuff like that. It's really weird. So just be careful. And Actually, if I believe if you're going to go get hypnotized, I think you should protect yourself beforehand until you find somebody you can trust, Like this guy right here, man. So whoever hypnotized him, he was subject to it. So he let the person hypnotize them, went so far down that he forgot about he was being talked about, which happens sometimes. And then during the hypnosis session, the guy was telling him that you were being chased by a savage dog, but forgot to, close the story, I guess, of that savage dog or counteract that chase. And now the dude's just paranoid. He thinks someone's following him all the time. And a lot of people would think that those two are interrelated. It's just a coincidence, but it's not. The unconscious mind is super powerful. So in view of this, a prime rule of hypnosis is never to implant a suggestion without afterwards canceling it completely. This rule holds good, even when there is no apparent response to the original suggestion. Yeah, because you don't know if the unconscious is holding on to it. Another rule that I learned the hard way is to frame suggestions in a positive manner. In my early experiments, I caused one subject considerable discomfort by suggesting that she would have no headache when she awoke. Her mind missed the little word no, and she woke with a headache in considerable pain. Yeah, that's because you told her mind that you're not going to have a headache, and her unconscious, as far under it, was really vulnerable. And all her unconscious thought was like headache. It's like, don't think about a pink elephant. What are you going to think about? People playing with hypnotism. They make classes for this stuff. There is no further pseudo danger, which leads me to suggest a final rule. Never attempt to hypnotize anyone who suffers from a heart disease. There is nothing in the trance experience to harm the heart. Yeah, I don't know. I've never heard anybody say that. Oh, they got a heart disease. Don't hypnotize them. I've never heard that before. Or any other organs for that matter. But if by coincidence your subject should have a heart attack during trance, you will have a difficult time convincing his relatives you're not a murderer. I didn't think about that. That's a fact, though. You killed him. It may be unfortunate that hypnosis is still a public mystery. Well, so is the placebo, but you know it works, don't you? But it is something you must learn to appreciate. There are a variety of methods for inducing trance. One technique I found generally suitable goes as follows. Settle your subject. I'm about to teach you guys. He's going to teach me how to teach you guys how to hypnotize somebody. Y'all ready? So settle your subject in a comfortable armchair and seat yourself beside him. Spend a few minutes chatting to him about hypnosis generally and what's going to happen in particular. It's important that he is completely at ease about the operation, so encourage questions and answer them frankly and honestly. Explain that you can do nothing without his full cooperation, and this means that, ultimately, he's in charge of what goes on. He can stop the process at any time. It sounds more like BDSM stuff. It sounds scary just talking about it, right? So with the preliminaries over, your next job is to make sure the subject is completely relaxed. This is not so easy as it sounds. The pace of modern life has helped make most of us quite unconscious of the variety of muscular tensions we carry around every day. By far the most successful method of getting rid of these tensions is systematic relaxation. And before relaxation can be achieved, your subject must be made fully conscious of how tension feels in the individual muscles. So begin with his feet and ask him to curl his toes as tightly as he can to manage and to hold them in that position as long as possible. Very quickly, this will produce an uncomfortable, cramped feeling, and when this arises, tell him to let his toes go limp. In this way, he becomes immediately aware of the difference between tension and relaxation in a particular set of muscles. Now, I have a tape or an audio that I go through this stuff, but move on through each muscle. The calves, continue up the body, the thighs, the stomach, the hands, the arms, the shoulders, the neck, alternately tensing and relaxing. This is the Reich method, by the way. You don't have to tense all the muscles and then relax them, but it is a method that works. When it comes to the face, have him grimace, tensing the muscles between the skin and gritting his teeth slightly, and have him hold this, then relax. He should pay particular attention to the jaw muscles, which often prove resistant to letting go. The final area, easily overlooked in relaxation, is the forehead and the scalp. A severe frown is usually enough to tense that whole area, then have him let go. If your subject is unused to not used to systematic relaxation, involuntarily tensions may well have crept in again by the end of the process, so have him mentally go over his body in the same sequence as before, relaxing all the set of muscles he finds has again become tense. It may even be necessary to repeat this process more than once until they're completely relaxed. At this stage, you're ready for the trance-inducing process. Now have your subject fix their eyes on some spot above his normal line of vision, then begin to talk. That sounds annoying to me, right? Like you just stick something right above where they usually look and fix your eyes on that, and then just start talking. What you say, in effect, a series of repeated suggestions, one built on the other. You will learn to judge trance levels from the subject's reactions, and there are simple tests you can apply to check your accuracy. Keep your voice low and soothing, but make sure the words are clear. Try not to stumble or pause too long in the early stages. Speak reasonably slowly, but you may find that your words fall into a rhythm, and this is all to the good. Your first positive suggestion is a confidence builder and involves slight cheating. This suggestion is that his eyes are becoming tired and heavy. What very few of your subjects will realize is that tired eyes and heavy eyelids are a perfectly natural physical result of directing the gaze upward for any length of time. What a dirty trick, right? So, like, I'm going to hold my finger right above your eyes and tell you to look at it and just focus on it. And then, like, when you... after a while, I'm just going to say, your eyes are getting heavy and you're starting to get sleepy. When your eyes naturally are getting heavy anyways, which is then it's like a little trick, right? Because they're going to tell themselves, oh, he's right. It must be working. A further suggestion that his whole body feels heavy is based on a similar situation. When your body is totally relaxed, it does feel heavy as a natural consequence, and so it should. A few of your subjects will weigh less than 7 stones. 7 stones. I don't know what that is, how to convert all that. One thing to watch out for at this point is any suggestions which might produce a jarring psychological effect. A woman with fat legs, for instance, will not take kindly to being told her legs are growing heavy. She's only too painfully aware that she has heavy legs at the best time. Fat legs. You could just say thick, man. Your total sequence of suggestion up to deep trance level might go something like this. Please breathe deep and relax. Deep breathing helps you to relax, so breathe deep now and relax. Keep your eyes fixed on that point and just relax. Deeply relax. It sounds like William Buellman. This is all the stuff that I listen to, too, when I do the out-of-body experience stuff, too. And as you breathe deep and relax, your body grows heavy. Now, you can feel your body heavy because you're deeply relaxed. Breathing deep and relaxed, you can feel your body heavy because you're so very deeply relaxed. Breathe deep and relax and listen to my voice. As you listen to my voice, breathing deeply and relaxed, your eyes grow tired and your eyelids become heavy. And as you listen to my voice, your eyelids become heavy and your eyes grow tired. So very tired as you listen to my voice. You know what? All I can hear is Pee Wee Herman in the background just going, yeah, I'm so very sleepy. I'm so very tired. You can feel your eyelids heavy. You can feel your eyes grow tired as you listen to my voice. And he just keeps repeating this. So very tired as you listen to my voice. So very heavy as you listen to my voice. So he's just repeating the same thing in different ways over and over. At this point, the first visible sign will emerge in a flickering of the subject's eyelids. Quite frequently, the eyes will actually slide slowly shut. These are positive signs, but do not become too excited about them. Except in very rare cases, your subject is still very far from trance. About 85% of all subjects will react in this way. The percentage who will go deeper is a lot smaller. But despite all this, watch out for the signs, because it is on the basis of these first reactions that any deepening of trance is built. Your subject has found that your first suggestions worked. Consequently, he will, or rather his unconscious mind, will more easily accept your next suggestion. So resist the temptation to go too fast, even with a good subject. Short-circuiting the process may make things easier for you, but you run the risk of trying a suggestion the subject is not yet ready to accept, and his failure to react tends to shoot the whole operation back to the beginning. Now continue the sequence. Let your eyelids close as you listen to my voice. Michael, don't listen to this if you're driving, brother. I don't want you to run off the road. You can let your eyelids close because your eyes are tired and sleepy. Blah, 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 so very sleepy. You're feeling so sleepy. Breathe deep and relax as you listen to my voice. And he goes on and he says, continue suggestion this type for a few minutes, telling the subject that he is becoming more and more deeply relaxed, falling deeper and deeper asleep. When this is done, you can test for depth of a trance as follows. Your body is now heavy because you're so relaxed. Your body is now heavy and your legs are heavy and your arms are heavy and relaxed. Your right arm is heavy and relaxed. So very heavy and relaxed. Too heavy to lift. It's so heavy and relaxed. Your right arm is so heavy you just can't lift it up. It's too heavy to lift because you're just so relaxed. And he keeps going on and on. Again, the suggestion is repeated until you feel it should take effect. If your subject responds, he will find himself incapable of lifting his arm. And once you're satisfied, reassure him at once. There's nothing to worry about. He's safe and well, perfectly relaxed, and his arm is now back to normal. Already your subject is in a very light trance. His body is completely relaxed, his breathing deep and regular, and he is responsive to simple suggestions. But he is still perfectly well aware of his surroundings and will remain so, even should he pass into medium-level trance. The mistake is often made that unless a subject loses consciousness, he is not in trance. This is not so, as experience soon shows you. It isn't a bad idea to tell him this, keeping your voice low and regular, then tell them he's going to pass into a deeper level. Like this. I'm going to count to 10, and as I count, you will fall into a deeper level of sleep. As I count to 10, you will fall deeper asleep, deeper and deeper asleep, as I count to 10. Now, do so slowly, and reinforce your suggestions between each count and continue to reinforce them a little while after 10 is reached, then test again. Tell him that this time his arm is growing stiff and rigid, although the rest of his body will, of course, remain perfectly relaxed. If the reaction is positive, release the arm and suggest his eyes are now locked shut. Oh, that's kind of scary. Your eyes are now locked shut. You can't open them. Shit. What was the name of that movie? It was like a freaky movie where they went... I can't think of the name of it, but they went into this house and this woman like hypnotized them to where they were stuck in their mind and they just couldn't get out. I'll think of it probably later. After this suggestion has been sufficiently reinforced, invite him to try to open his eyes, but allow plenty of time for this test. In my experience, it tends to be fairly crucial. Should your subject find he cannot open his eyes, tell him that they are back to normal, but ask him to keep them closed. Even if he managed to open them, remember to suggest strongly that you have returned to normal after the test. Another count to 10 should produce the deepening of trance to the middle level, and this can be tested by suggesting his arm has now become so light it is floating in the air on its own accord. A further, indeed probably the best test for medium-level trance is the subject's response to post-hypnotic suggestion. The term is used to denote action suggested by the hypnotist but carried out by the subject after he's awakened from trance. Ooh. These should be kept simple until you are sure deep trance has been reached. You might, for instance, suggest the subject borrows a box of matches or goes to sit on a different chair. The actions may be triggered by a keyword or gesture from the hypnotist. If nothing else, hypnosis can be used to promote relaxation prior to of an astral trip. So he's doing all this to get someone ready to go into the astral, right? But the most interesting relationship between hypnosis and the astral appears at the deep level trance state. And signs of deep trance, assuming your subject is one of the 20% who can reach it, are his ability to open his eyes without suggest or affecting the trance, positive reaction to complicated post-hypnotic suggestion, and hallucination. Once the hallucination stage is reached, you're dealing with a level of the astral plane, and your subject has passed through his personal hypnotic doorway and is conscious only of an astral environment. Boy, this is trippy, man. I mean, don't you think, like, hold on, I can't see the clock. Don't you think, I can tell, like, I'm grinning while I'm reading this because it's the same thing the stage hypnotists do. Like, they know how to ask questions to see who's going to respond to their answers the most, to see who's suggestive, basically. That's why when they have people come on stage, they'll have some people raise their hands or whatever, and then they'll get up, try a few things, and then they'll tell certain people to go sit down and other ones to stay up there. And it's funny because every now and then you'll get like a person on the stage who will swear that you can't hypnotize me. I'm like, I'm not hypnotizable. You can't do it. They're just too proud to understand that they are, because the whole time the hypnotist has been testing them, he's been doing exactly what he's telling them to do. But his conscious mind is saying, no, man, I'm not hypnotized. Have you guys ever seen that? It's funny as hell when you see it. So once the hallucination stage is reached, in other words, once they're deep into trance, they're seeing stuff that's not there, you're dealing with a level of the astral plane. Your subject is, well, I guess it could be there, but your subject has passed through his personal hypnotic doorway. His link with the physical plane now is only your voice and your instructions. And in most cases of hypnotic experiments, the subject's experiences on the plane are meaningless. He is told he is at a soccer match and builds the astral environment accordingly. His hallucinations are not even his own. They are random ideas tossed out by the hypnotist. I'm indebted to the French psychologist Paul Golden for putting me on the track of a much more useful astral operation. Golden developed the technique of suggesting to subjects that they take an unspecified trip anywhere they wish to go. And since the only other suggestions given are that they will return when told and remember where they have been, the results of this technique are often very interesting. Much material is, of course, the result of purely subjective factors such as wish fulfillment. But some hypnotic trips appear to go beyond this. It was, in fact, as the result of a series of hypnotic experiments that I began to pay more attention to the occult theory of the astral plane as an objective reality. In other words, I guess he didn't even start realizing that the astral plane was real or objective until he started getting into hypnotizing people and seeing just how real these experiences were, right? So, yeah. All right, we got to take our radio station break. When we come back, I hope you learned a little bit about hypnosis. Don't go hypnotizing people. Not yet. I would take a class other than just what this book says before you try to do it. But the next part in this text is where he talks about astral experiences. So I guess that first section was all about just how to put someone in a hypnotic trance state before we start talking about these astral experiences. Pretty cool stuff. I'm fascinated by this stuff, man. Don't know why. Yeah, we'll take a break. We'll be right back. We got to take a station break.
Look the other way. I know you long for something new, so that you're wasting all your days looking for something that is right in front of you. And I just want them to notice you. And I'll never let go of you. There's something flying in the air, and I just don't know what it could be. Smoke is flying everywhere. I'm getting the feeling it's the end for you and me.
Hey, this is country music singer and void walker Jason Benoit, and when I need my fix on the world of magic and the capabilities of the human consciousness, I listen to Joe Roop right here on Lighting the Void Radio.
Wake up and text. Text and eat. Text and catch the bus. Text and miss your stop. Wait. Text and be late to work. Sorry, I'm late. Text and work. Text and pretend to work. Text and act surprised when someone calls you out for not working.
Who, me?
Text and meet up with a friend you haven't seen in forever.
Hi.
Oh, hey.
Text and complain that they're on their phone the whole time. Text and listen to them complain that you're on your phone the whole time. Text and whatever. But when you get behind the wheel, give your phone to a passenger. Put it in the glove box. Just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Is that a faucet running? That's not a faucet. That's a river rushing through the forest. Forest rivers provide over 100 million people with clean water to drink.
What? I can't hear you because of the vacuum.
That's not a vacuum. That's the trees in the forest cleaning up the air we breathe.
I didn't know the trees were so amazing.
Yep, and the forest gives us shade, trees to climb.
That's awesome. Let's go explore some more.
Visit the forest today and enjoy all it does, just for you. To learn more about the forest and find one near you, go to Discover the Forest.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Have you ever wondered, what do the stars say for me? Or, will the next month or the next year be more favorable? How about, are our two signs compatible? Each month, at the new moon, you can ask these questions live with me, your astrologer psychic, Mary DeCina, along with host of Lighting the Void, Joe Root. Join us at the new moon for Cosmic Conditions. We look forward to working with your energy.
Every new moon at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, right here on Fringe FM. Bumper stickers are a fun side hustle with low-cost investment that has built-in advertising to attract local customers in parking lots, rallies, gatherings, conventions, venues, and more. You could potentially sell these bumper stickers on consignment to local businesses, tattoo parlors, head shops, or any other independently owned store that might gear toward the Fringe. Bumper stickers are great gift-giving ideas for friends and family. Also, a way to wake up your fellow travelers on the path without having to waste energy in tiresome debates. No car? No problem. Bumper stickers will stick to just about anything with a semi-smooth surface. Go to www.justbsme.com and get your bumper stickers today.
My name is Jake. I'm from Billings, Montana, and I am a void walker.
Hey, Joe Root. Thanks for lighting the void. This is Janine in the bluegrass of Kentucky, and I am a void walker.
What's up, guys? This is Damien from San Marcos, Texas, and I'm a void walker. I listen to the show to keep myself aligned with the world.
Hi, this is Laura, aka Laura Lavender. I'm from Las Vegas, and I listen to Lighting the Void because it helps me understand some of the strangest experiences I've had. So thanks for all that you do and for always being there for us, Joe.
You were listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
All right, welcome back to Lighting the Void Radio, here live on the Fringe FM. Also, KTOK Digital Broadcasting Talk Stream Live, the Paranormal Radio app at Live 365. I'm wondering if anybody got hypnotized by that. Hypnosis is a bit boring, right? But so is relaxation. I have some path workings that you can grab if you go to the fringe.fm/shop, or if you go to the Patreon store, they're there as well. They're a bit more fun, though. It's not just some dude repeating about how you're relaxed and heavy. I blended in breath work, some Gnostic stuff, some Golden Dawn stuff, and made it all one big path working. And there are several people that have attested to it that it works, but my goal with that is either to get you to the vibratory state or the out-of-body state, preferably the out-of-body state, but, you know, that usually happens based on the person, too. All right, so we're going to get back into this, and this is J.H. Brennan's book. He's talking about the hypno-astral experience, another doorway into the astral realm. So, in time, this is a quote by H.J. Esnick. In time, no doubt, all these difficulties will vanish, and we will have the beginnings of a rational theory of parapsychology. Until then, we should perhaps not be too critical and remember that we have no proper theory of most psychological phenomena either. That's something to think about, because a lot of this stuff, like, they still haven't figured out what the placebo is, even though they know it's real. They haven't figured out consciousness, even though they know it's real. Hell, they haven't figured out dark matter, for that matter. No pun intended, even though I don't think they know that's real. So consciousness is probably the greatest mystery, even though there's some definite things that happen to all of us. They just have their theories. And I mean, the only way that you can test it is if, you know, you have to test it on live people. It kind of makes it difficult, right? Unless you're a void walker, that is, then you can do it however you want to do it. So, let's see what happens when he takes people under this hypnotic state. So, consciousness attempts to use hypnosis as a key to the astral came after I stumbled on proof of its usefulness while trying to do something else. I discovered Denise Alexander while on a trip to Northern Ireland, and she was working at the time as a shop assistant in a chain store. An attractive, completely extroverted girl in her late teens, she had no interest in or knowledge of the occult. That worries me, dude. You're looking at teenagers, man, Mr. Brennan. She was, however, easily the most remarkable hypnotic subject I had then encountered. Denise not only had the capacity for deep trance, but she reached the level with almost alarming speed. That's like Luke, what he says to that girl in the new Star Wars. Well, I've never seen anyone go that fast, that deep into the dark side. She reacted positively to every test I thought to apply. On more than one occasion, she spontaneously went into deep trance while watching me work with someone else. Well, that just means that she's suggestive to it, right? And that is all. Denise enjoyed the hypnotic experience and was consistently willing to undergo it. She was highly intelligent and very observant, and two qualities which had added considerably to her value as a subject. At the time, I was interested in the problem of establishing some first-hand evidence of etheric projection. So guys, remember, etheric projection is when you just take your body out of the body here, not, go into the visions and stuff. So to do so, I set up the following experiment. A couple, mutual friends of Denise and myself, planned to leave their house vacant while on holiday. I arranged that before leaving they should write a short letter, the contents of which were known only to them. This letter should be left on the mantelpiece in their living room. During the period of our friend's holiday, kind of worried about where this is going. During a period of our friend's holiday, Denise agreed to visit my wife and myself as a house guest. At some stage during the visit, Denise would, under hypnosis, attempt to travel to our friend's home in the etheric body and there read the letter. I reasoned for the rather torturous holiday arrangements was that I wanted to rule out so far as possible the question of telepathy. Our friends did not know exactly when Denise would make her attempt, and whenever it was made, they would be absent from their home, presumably thinking of other things. So, Denise passed into trance with her accustomed ease on the evening of the experiment. I suggested that she was leaving her body and traveling back towards her hometown. The distance involved was about 100 miles. She responded positively, and I then directed her to go to our friend's house. Had she arrived? Well, she had. Would she go inside and enter the living room? She did. Was there a letter on the mantelpiece? There was. At this point, results took a dramatic downwards turn. I asked Denise to read me the letter, but she refused to do so. She became agitated and said she could not. I asked the trouble and was told she could not see it. I then suggested she go closer, which she did, but still she could not read the letter. Why not? It was, she said, too dark. I've been there before, almost out of body, but practically almost blind. It's a trippy thing. This was a complication I should have expected, but didn't. I tried to remedy it by suggestion. I told her it was getting lighter in the room. She accepted the suggestion and agreed. Now could she read the letter? No, it was still too dark. I then suggested she was moving back to the doorway and told her to switch on the light. Again, she accepted the suggestion. The lights were on now. Could she read the message? No, it was too dark. I had almost resigned myself to total failure when, on some irrational inspiration, I asked how many words were in the letter. 5, Denise replied promptly. What color was the paper? Blue, she said. Was it lined or unlined? The paper. Lined, she said. Was the letter typed, handwritten, or printed? Hand-printed in block capitals, she said. All these answers later turned out to be accurate. I considered the experiment a qualified success and determined to repeat it. Later I did so, but not with Denise. This time, Arthur Gibson stepped in, with staggering results. Arthur had a very different temperament to Denise. A man of about 40. I thought it said short of 40. He was fascinated by the occult. He had lived in India for several years where he studied Hatha and mantra yoga. He had some direct experience of spiritualism and a knowledge of the esoteric, which made remarkable by the fact that he had never read a single book on the subject. His information was gleaned partly through discussions and partly from meditation. By nature, he was both emotional and introverted. Arthur witnessed the experiment involving Denise and volunteered as a subject for the next one. I was not enthusiastic. On several past occasions, I had tried to hypnotize Arthur without the slightest result. I believed him to be one of the immune 15%. But Arthur insisted things would be different this time, and reluctantly I agreed to try. As it turned out, he could not have been more right, nor I more wrong. To my astonishment, he fell quickly into deep trance, and soon he was responding to post-hypnotic suggestions even more complex than those used to test Denise. There was not the slightest doubt that he had become a first-class subject for etheric experimentation. Etheric experimentation. That's what I'm talking about. What's up, Genevieve? No rigid experiment had been set up. What followed was decided on the spot, and to that extent results arose out of chance of circumstances, but the results were striking. Using the golden technique, I suggested Arthur take a trip anywhere that he wished, and then I left him for perhaps 10 minutes. When he awoke, he remembered his journey, but not the fact that he had been hypnotized. He had been hypnotized, but he reported he'd flown to India. He described the plane and remarked the flight had been a pleasant one. He found himself in Bombay, a city with which he was quite familiar. He was sightseeing. Arthur's description of Bombay could easily have been drawn from memory, so it was pointless giving them here. As he told us about his journey, a certain confusion began to creep in. He could not work out how he had suddenly returned to Ireland. I reminded him that his experience had been under hypnosis, but he did not believe me. He was convinced in time, of course, but the fascination with his vision remained. He could appreciate that the scenes he had witnessed might be no more than dramatized memories, but two things puzzled him. This is trippy, man. So I'm not sure, is he saying that after Arthur did this vision that when he woke up, he didn't know where he was? Like, what am I doing in Ireland? It's almost like his realities had shifted or something. He had visited a favorite restaurant in Bombay and discovered it had been completely redecorated. And in one part of the old city, he found a wall newly built where none had been before. He could not understand why his memory should begin to play tricks at these points. Besides, the whole thing had seemed so real. It was real. Arthur wrote to a friend in India for information. The restaurant he found had actually been redecorated. The wall he saw had actually been built. And so far, the experiment pointed to etheric projection. Arthur agreed to try again. This time, controls were tighter. Man, I'm telling you guys, this shit's real. I've been telling y'all that forever. I mean, he didn't affect the physical realm, but he took his etheric body and went to India and saw what was currently there. That's all that happened. So instead of sending him on an unspecified trip, I suggested he visit a neighboring house. I was familiar with the interior layout of this building, but he was not. He made the trip and began to describe the interior with striking accuracy, down to details like the nature of the paintings on the walls and a view from the windows. At one point, he insisted a fire screen had been moved from its proper place, a detail that I was unable to confirm at the time, but which later turned out to be accurate. Once again, it seemed on the face of things that Arthur was an etheric projector, yet with the massive detail that was accurate. He produced simultaneously a good deal of material which bore no relationship to physical reality. This was particularly evident when he described people he saw in the house. A very similar situation arose many months later with a different subject. Wait a minute, what did he just say? He made the trip. He even said there was a fire screen that had been moved. So he projected his etheric body. Then he talked about stuff that had no relationship to physical reality. So he saw the house as it was, but saw people there that weren't there. I bet he saw people in the astral realm or spirits or something, man. And this was evident when he described people he saw in the house. Okay. I just double checking my brain here to make sure I understand this. So a very similar situation arose many months later with a different subject. This girl projected to the old church. She described the locality reasonably well, but added detail which had no physical parallel. That there was a distinct connection between her vision and the church as it stands today was shown when she led a party there without guidance in pitch darkness, taking her directions only on the basis of her vision. In trying to evaluate these experiments, the inaccurate data seemed to me at least as significant as the hits. The suspicion crept in that we were dealing with something other than etheric phenomena. This suspicion was confirmed when Sam Gordon became a subject in the series. An engineer in his early 20s, Sam had recently joined the Merchant Navy at the time he took his first important trip. Previously, he had experimented quite successfully with the elemental doorways. So previously, he was using Tatua cards to do this. Hypnosis increased the reality tone of his visions, but not to a degree where he would make the mistake of thinking the experience was physical reality, as Arthur had done. To Sam, the whole thing was rather like going to the movies or the cinema. Sam wrote the following account of his experience, delightfully titled, A Journey from One Place to Another. And this is Sam's experience. Where does it start at? Oh, I am in the desert. There are sand dunes. The journey begins with me on a half horse, half donkey animal. I feel half priest, half soldier, so he feels like he's half priest and half a soldier. The street is fairly narrow with Arab-like traders on each side of me. They're selling brass and copper goods, but not to me. On my pure white mule, dressed in scarlet and gold and wearing a cardinal's hat, I passed under 3 arches and then out of the town and into the desert. In front of me to my left is a great pit. I cannot see to the bottom of this, but there is grass and red areas low down. I keep well away and continue on my trip. The ground rises towards the horizon. The wind starts up and I'm in the middle of a sandstorm. I have the idea that while a storm is on, I'll make time, so I beat the mule with my whip, and soon I realize that this is not good at all, and I let the beast alone. Yeah, animals don't like to be beat, man, just because you want them to go faster. The same thing with horses, man. I dated this girl one time who we'd go horseback riding, and she would spur the hell out of her horse, and of course the horse would run, but later, I would find blood on the side of the horse. We got in a big fight about it too, man. Like a big argument. Anyways, I have ADD. That's a whole other subject. But long story short, the horse ended up kicking her ass later. I had to take her to the doctor. It was when I was younger, though. The storm stops, and below me is a shallow valley with a stream running down the middle of it. To my side, sand and nothing else. On the other side, an area of darker sand supporting some vegetation. The sand is darker because it is in the shadow of a great white cloud. In this darker region is a walled city, and that's where I'm going. The walls are muddy gray. I go down the gentle slope to the river and cross at a wooden bridge. A soldier, Spanish type and armed with a lance, comes my way. Almost halfway across the bridge, he steps close to one side and lets me by. I give my mule a chance to munch a few blades of grass, and then we have to be on our way. Guards are at all the gates and doorways, but the mule takes me on. Anyway, everybody clears out of my way, or the mule's way, and we step into a white palace, or the like after climbing a lot of steps. On my right and left are 2 rectangular swimming pools, but I take little notice. There's a greeny tint about the floor here, and there are also a few people, but again, I take little notice. I climb many white marble steps, and there are red carpets and curtains about. I think I can see the throne, but I'm looking for the king. But here, my journey ends. That's a weird ending. The abrupt ending, curiously enough, was not because he had been recalled. For some unconscious reason, he terminated the trip himself, although remaining in trance until awakened in the normal way. I think it goes without saying that this trip was not an etheric projection. The Cardinals' hat, if nothing else, would rule this out. Indeed, at the time, it seemed sheer fantasy. But Sam went to sea, and 4 months later found himself in fair approximation of his astral environment. He wrote from the Middle East in some exciting detail, parallels, and requested some attempt be made to see the continuation of the trip, which he was convinced would indicate a future port of call. To comply with his request, I sought the help of Bea Van Vliet, and she had never met Sam, but had, under hypnosis, demonstrated a curious clairvoyant ability. On April 5th, 1969, Bea went into deep trance and under detailed instructions followed the course of Sam's earlier trip. When she reached the throne room, she continued the vision without further instruction. And according to the notes taken at the time, she met a richly dressed man who seemed to want to show her something. They went into a long gallery with arches, and from it the man pointed towards a huge valley. In the valley was a large Arabic-type city with a path of brick steps leading down towards it. As Bea watched, the sky darkened and the city changed. Different structures emerged. From architecture and wall paintings, Bea recognized the environment as Mexican. And for various reasons, Sam never received a report of this experiment, but that made no difference to the outcome. His next port of call was to South America. Whoa. Dude, that is a freaking trip, man. All right, so we have to assume that what this guy is saying is real. And so based on my experience, I think what he's saying is real. So now in this book, we've differentiated the difference between an etheric projection, which is the same kind of projection that you and I could get out of body, see ourselves sleeping, go to other places in the physical realm. Whether we can affect the physical realm, I think we can because I did, but that's not proven. But this is, I think. He's had 2 or 3 subjects see things that there's no way they could have known that were there. But this guy, the second guy, wanted to do the same thing, but ended up astrally projecting. Not only that, seeing his future, like seeing, he could see like images and symbols of what was about to happen in his life, which makes me think all kinds of weird stuff about time. And then his vision just abruptly ended for whatever reason. And then Bea Van Vliet came and finished the vision, but never told him about it, and said that I guess her vision ended that it was going to be in like Mexico or something. And then this guy ended up flying to South America. That's so trippy. It's really trippy. I think something has to be, I think it helps too when, and this is just my theory, but I also think it helps too when people are connected, right? So if you're, because I've had experience with this, if you're connected with people like on a soul level, like if they're your friends, even your partner, or just someone you have a deep, strong connection with, a lot of times you'll see some of the same stuff they're seeing and you don't know it. But I promise you, whether it's dreams, like daydreams, etheric projections, astral projections, talk to the people that you're close to, even if you think they think that you're weird. Just talk to them. And I bet you, not all the time, but every now and then they're going to be like, wait, what'd you say? Because I was either there, standing there, or I saw the same thing. That's pretty trippy, man. I think I'm going on a rant here. If you want to chime in about what you think, you can call in to at 501-777-5631. All right. So, Chapter 11, The Objective Astral. Again, we're reading Astral Doorways by J.H. Brennan, written in the 70s. Learning how to astral project using esoteric tools, other means, hypnotism, the tatwas, tarot, the Kabbalah, the I Ching, and now he's talking about the objective astral. And I hope you guys know the difference between objective and subjective. All right, so here's a quote by John Simmons from Magic and Mysticism. The astral light is beyond the range of our senses, but its existence is suggested by mysticism, psychology, and new physics. This book opened with a quotation from Eliphas Levi. In subsequent chapters, I've tried to narrow the credibility gap it must have produced. By now, my own reports and any experiments you may have tried with the doorways should have persuaded you there is more to the astral plane than mere imagination. But if the astral is not just imagination, what is it exactly? This is not easy to answer, and answers that might be given are difficult to prove, except in the manner that puddings are proved. The standard occult answer requires a modification of the basic diagram which appeared in Chapter 1. This modification has been made in Figure 8. I'll show you guys what it looks like if you folks on YouTube want to see it. But remember, this book is from the 70s, all right? So, what's up, Strum and Ronan? Good to have you here. Now, the solid black area representing the astral plane extends both right and left of the line marked the self. So remember, the center line between the faded colors is the self. You have the physical realm and the realm of the mind. It is now seen as touching on the physical as well as mental levels. It has become, if you like, the imagination of matter. Yeah, the blueprints of matter. That's what it is. I've noticed this term used more than once in occult literature. It is expressive but unfortunate. The connection is too easily made that occultists believe matter to be sentient, a difficult proposition to back up. It might be easier to suggest that various physical features like trees, streams, and mountains produce automatic stresses in the astral by reason of their existence. This no more introduces sentience than the fact that a mountain can influence an air current. Although the definition of the astral plane has now been extended, its essential nature remains unchanged. It is still a fluid, plastic medium, having no form in itself, but capable of taking any form impressed on it and capable of giving form to underlying forces. That's the first time I've ever seen a glyph like that. It's kind of weird. Genevieve says, maybe that's how telepathy begins. Yeah, maybe. Could be. Earlier, these forces were considered to be mental. And now we accept the possibility that physical forces can work on the astral as well. From this viewpoint, many a magical operation suddenly starts to make sense. The ritualist words of power, for instance, or witchcraft's chanted spells involve at very least the production of sound wave patterns. I was just talking about this yesterday, so this is kind of crazy synchronistic. Sound can shatter a wine glass, draw patterns in a plate of sand, or, if you happen to accept the story, demolish the walls of Jericho. It is not too difficult to suppose it might also influence the astral plane. Repeated movements may do the same. Reinforced by the imaginative workings of the mages, this possibility lies behind all magical ceremony. Occultists make one further postulate, that influence works two ways. Matter acts on the astral plane to produce patterns of change in its structure. But patterns established in the astral will also produce changes in the material world. Yep, that's a fact. This later reaction is considerably more difficult than the former to put into effect, but it is the basis of virtually all magic involving the physical plane. This is not to say wishing will make it so, even combined with a vivid imagination. I have a fair idea what the inside of a television set looks like, but no knowledge of electronics. I know that an arrangement of wires, transistors, and other equipment can produce pictures of a cathode ray tube. But if I were to build a set only on the basis of this knowledge, it would not work. The position with astral magic is exactly the same. Without proper training in the detail of an astral operation, the tyro is in a similar position to the cargo cultist who builds a wooden runway to attract the great metal birds full of white man's goodies. He's got a pretty valid point there, though. A detailed examination of astral magic is beyond the scope of this book. The subject is mentioned here to give an idea of the fascinating possibilities which lie beyond those doorways. If you'll forgive a curious statement, I think some of the other possibilities are a lot more important than producing miracles with which to amaze your friends. I base this statement on the belief that there is another plane beyond the astral, and if you agree, then we need to start working from another basic diagram. The first figure was fine so far as it went, but the geography is wrong once you add a further plane. Occultists call this area beyond the astral the spiritual plane, assuming everybody knows what is meant by, quote, spiritual. It is a dangerous assumption, and everybody does indeed know what is meant by spiritual. But the knowledge is so personal that it is useless in a wider context. You will see exactly what I mean next time you listen to students arguing about the real nature of God. Each one has his own views and backs them with as much skill and information as he can lay in his mind. But at the end, nobody is closer to God, and the reason is that their argument is verbal. There's a neat way to spark a textbook verbal argument. Never use it on graduates in logic because they know it already, for the rest is set up thus. In the middle of a field there is a single tree. Clinging to the bowl on the eastern face is a squirrel. Standing in the eastern corner of the field and direct line with the squirrel and facing towards it is a hunter with a gun. The hunter wants to shoot the squirrel. The squirrel becomes aware of the hunter and, not wishing to be shot, begins to edge around the tree, hoping to get the trunk between itself and the hunter's gun. The hunter, determined to beat this maneuver, begins to move in the same direction, always keeping in direct line with the squirrel. After a few minutes, both the squirrel and the hunter have completed a full circuit of the tree. The problem now becomes, did the hunter go round the squirrel? Did the hunter go round the squirrel? Not really. If he stayed in line with the squirrel, not really. He didn't go around it. This problem divides an unsophisticated audience into two opposing factions. It's a pretty good question, though. One maintains that the hunter does indeed go round the squirrel because he is in sequence to the east, so to the south, to the west, to the north, and finally back to the east of the animal. The second faction maintains that the hunter obviously does not go around the squirrel because at no time is he to the side or to the front of it. If this seems obvious to you that they are arguing in the last analysis about the meaning of the words go round, you're quite correct. But it's not obvious to everyone. And it is less obvious when the subject has more emotional appeal than hunters and squirrels. So, is that too confusing? That's kind of crazy to think about, though, right? Sudi asks, hey, Joe, what do you think about using ceremonial or sigil magic for increasing chances of getting out of body? I think it's a wonderful idea, especially if you can let it go. But I'll say this. So I'm going to admit something to you. Ceremonial magic, if you do it right, is tough. It's really tough. Because this is something that you're supposed to do every single day without there's no excuses. It's just like going to the gym. So 20 to 30 minutes at the very least of every day you're to do your ceremonies, right? Just that alone, though, when I was doing that, I used to do I take breaks on weekends and stuff. I'm not supposed to do that, but I do now. But when I was doing this every day, at least once, twice, 3 times a day, I didn't really even have to focus on going out of body. All kinds of crazy astral experiments happened to me because, and this is going to sound crazy to the logical mind, but I'm going to tell you. Because you're reinforcing the unconscious, you're circumambulating and doing the same things in your well, it doesn't have to be a a ritual space as big as mine. It can just be a corner of a room, but you're doing the same things every day. So you're kind of vibrating the circumambulating force all the time, every single day. At the very least, your unconscious mind is picking up on this. But I believe that your unconscious is, and that placebo, that spark between the unconscious, the placebo, and all that is the doorway into the spiritual realm. So anyways, before I go on, have you ever done a ritual to ask, like, hey, I just want to go out of body? No. And the only reason why is because it just automatically does it already. But it would be a good experiment to do. I have to think about how I would do it, though. Let's see. A discussion about the true nature of God, stripped of its emotional content, is a discussion about the meaning of the word God and nothing else. Exactly the same difficulty and a very similar emotional content presents itself when you use a word like spiritual, all of which leads me to define what I mean by the word. If your first reaction is to disagree, remember that the subject of disagreement is the word, not the reality. A spiritual plane is to the mental plane what the mental plane is to the astral plane. It is perfectly permissible to consider the astral plane as billows of fine matter. And from this viewpoint, the mental plane, the psyche, is held to be composed of even finer matter still. And from our definition, the spiritual plane is composed of the finest and the most subtlest matter of all. It is equally permissible, although slightly, remember this is from the 70s, y'all. It is equally permissible, although slightly abhorrent to me, to consider the astral plane as a level of higher vibration. The mental plane is a higher vibration still, and the spiritual plane becomes the highest vibration of all. These are more or less standard occult viewpoints, even allowing for the fact that they need not be taken too literally. I dislike both. It seems to me every evident that in the astral we are dealing with a state totally alien to the physical. As such, the only worthwhile way to consider it seems to be as a different reality we can experience but not measure. Yeah, logistical people have no idea what to do if they can't measure something, if the logical mind can't comprehend it, right? Ideally, the position should be left at that. Unfortunately, it will not be. The human mind has a tendency towards analogy, so the mental plane will be described as finer or higher than the astral, and the spiritual plane will be thought of as finer or higher still. And although these ideas communicate something, they still amount to saying, I don't know, blue is finer than green, or scarlet is redder than crimson. The way out of the maze is to remember you have direct experience of both the astral and the mental planes, and note the connection between the two and form your own link, by analogy, with the spiritual. But do not try to put your conclusions into words. Once you do so, you are back in the maze again. Words cannot describe it, in other words, is what he's saying. With a fourth plane to consider, the new basic diagram might look something like this. It's just going to show like circles within circles, but I'll show you guys. Let's see. So if you were to like categorize it and do everything the human mind wants to do, and you think about the material being the densest, thickest plane, the way he has it diagrammed here is the material's in the center and it's thick. Then there's another circle around it, which is the astral, which is a little thinner, and then the mental plane, even thinner, and then the spiritual, which is like even thinner, I guess you could say. The viscosity gets smaller as you go out. The innermost sphere of the diagram represents the material universe. To all intents, the planet Earth. Beyond it, like an onion skin, is the astral sphere, and beyond that, the mental, and beyond that, the spiritual. Kind of makes sense, though, don't it? If you looked at it as I know in Israel Regardie's book, they look at everything like a holographic sphere. They want you to look at it that way. So when you're doing ritual in your temple, you have your physical temple, your physical body, your physical sound, sight, smell, all that stuff is interacting with the astral and the mental planes of the stuff that you're bringing down. I don't even want to say bringing into the circle. Like, for instance, again, if I'm drawing a circle with my finger, whether I'm going around the temple because I have a big room, or I'm just doing it in like the corner of an area and I'm just turning a circle because I don't have a big room. The whole point is that my physical body is either going around or turning, making a circle, and that's the physical realm, right? The dense realm. The vibrations, all that, the dense realm. But when I'm drawing the line, like say the blue flaming line with my finger, and as I'm focusing on it, using the ever powerful mind, you're blending those two worlds together. It's almost like there is really no word. He's right. There's no words to put it to words to where it's comprehensible, because it all kind of blends together. And if you do the same thing every day, the same spot all the time, you're going to manifest a certain energy. You're going to invoke a certain energy. So anyways, he goes on to explain it like this. These are not, of course, geographical locations. The astral is not a circle, and the universe as the Van Allen belt circles the earth. In this realm, you're dealing with a different state of affairs. Once you pass through a doorway, you have entered a non-geographical space, if that makes any sense to your mind. You have also, by the look of things, managed to sidestep time. If you have already tried an astral trip, the chances are you will have noticed a distortion in your time sense. That's true. I once guessed at 20 minutes for an inner journey that lasted objectively an hour and a quarter. This may, of course, be simple disorientation, but disorientation does not explain how 2 journeys predicted Sam's next ports of call when he went to South America. With this sort of picture, then, you have layers of pseudo-space extending 4-dimensionally into pseudo-time, wrapped around, or, more accurately, intermingling with the physical plane. It is assumed that each layer can interact on the other, with automatic interaction strongest at the closest point of contact. A fairly natural series of subdivisions follows these ideas. That part of the astral closest to the earth takes on form from the earthly influences. I totally follow what he is saying, man. I hope you guys are too, because based on my experience, I totally follow what he's saying. Just like your etheric body, when you get out, you're still going to see you. If you read Robert Monroe's books, when he left his body and his etheric double, like he would run his hands through parts of the walls. So it's weird. Like his hand would go through the wall. His etheric hand would go through the wall, but his hand would also feel like get stuck on things or feel a nail or something like that. And it's because it's all kind of intermingling. It's really strange. It is assumed that each layer can interact on the other, with automatic interaction strongest at the closest point of contact. A fairly natural series of subdivisions follows these ideas. That part of the astral closest to the earth takes on the form of the earthly influences. Part of this form is purely a mirror image of physical conditions, but the remainder is the form aspect of emotional thoughts from Earth's inhabitants. Psychics maintain this lower astral level is not very pleasant. Unless your view of mankind is very naive, you'll have no trouble realizing why. Beyond the lower astral, conditions grow more attractive. Here, the major automatic influences come, as it were, from above, so to speak. The good forces, right? The goody, higher vibratory stuff. And since the level above is that of abstract thought, the higher astral forms tend to be cleaner in the artistic rather than the moral sense and better organized. Like the astral and mental plane, the mental plane may be subdivided. The lower mental receives a feedback from the astral, giving some form to its abstractions. The higher mental is influenced by the spiritual, producing such curiosities as intuition and certain forms of genius. Readers familiar with occultism may protest that other sources give a different number of astral levels. A sevenfold division is quite popular, especially in the East, but it must be remembered that any dividing lines are arbitrary. They are conveniences to the mind rather than representations of reality. You place them where they do most good to personal understanding. However subdivided, you can see from our new diagram that the road to spiritual potencies lies through the astral plane. The mystic takes a bypass to these heights. The magician, with a different temperament, takes the astral road. Both are heading for the same destination. And how much, damn it. What are you guys saying? I'm missing because I'm focused on the book here. What do you think about ceremonial or sigil magic increasing the chances of getting out of body? I think it would work because you're telling your inner self like you want to get out. I asked my tarot cards how I can get out easier, and they basically said slow down, chill out, and don't stress too much about it. Yeah, if you look at it like from a fun point of view, because I've been both like in the fun and adventurous point of view, which is way better than the super like over masculine, like desiring it to happen no matter what. Because one time I got frustrated and angry, and I got like stuck halfway in my body, getting mad about it. I'm going to get mine out and dust them off. Lots of inner work to do. You go for it, Genevieve. You go, girl. All right, the next one is, entities. This is probably what you guys are mostly interested in, too. We only got 7 minutes. I'll start it, though. I'm going to have to get some stuff for my voice, man. It's getting worse. Oh, shit, I lost my spot. Astral entities. This is a small chapter. Maybe we can do this real fast. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. This is a quote, a conjuration from the grimoire of Honorius the Great. So in the name of the Father, and the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Attention, and come all ye spirits, by the power and the virtue of your kings. All the spirits of the hells are compelled to manifest themselves in my presence before this pentacle or the circle of King Solomon, when I may call them. Yeah. Always, dude, when I read grimoires, man, I always think that these cats are psychotic. Think about it. There's a form of neurosis. I'm not saying that we're all not a part of God. We definitely are. I mean, hell, we may just be God divided up into little bitty realms of consciousness that have been subdivided into bodies and forms. That's cool. I get it. But when a person like steps into a circle and says this stuff, there's like, you have to really believe this stuff in order for it to work, you know? Like, it's just funny to hear it. I'm commanding everything. Carl Jung, here we go, sorry. Carl Jung is somewhere quoted as saying that no one should waste energy denying the existence of the gods when they could be giving their attention to investigating forces which behave exactly as the gods were once reputed to behave. It is good advice, and I intend sticking to it. I said my little bit for the objective astral in the last chapter. Whether you accept the possibility is your own affair. If in the present chapter you prefer to think of spirits as semi-autonomous complexes, that too is your own affair. My concern is purely to describe... Something just hit me back. My concern is purely to describe a few of the entities you may possibly meet on astral wanderings, subjective or objective. First, there are the nature spirits. These have been named by folklore and are closely associated with the elements. There are 4 broad divisions: the earth gnomes, You guys know this, right? The fire salamanders, the sifs, and the undines. They're in the order given personifications of earth gnomes, air sifs, fire salamanders, and water undines. And under the same category come elves, sprites, fairies, brownies, and Ireland's beloved little people, the leprechauns. They are the astral expression of natural forces, manifesting as entities of greater or lesser power. The dominant characteristic of these creatures is single-mindedness. Their actions are severely limited to their own concern. They are beyond good and evil. In the same sense, they are neutral. They have totally fixed behavior patterns. Set over the elemental creation are the elemental kings. The inner hierarchy is a reflection of a physical fact such as the hurricane's domination of breezes in its path. Since the elemental kings represent the elements in their broader, wilder sense, they are associated with great power and can be difficult to control. For this reason, they tend to be feared in some occult quarters. But their essential nature is still neutral. Only their misdirection will produce evil results. In accordance with the nature of the astral plane, thought forms also occur widely. I think I've seen those before. They are mainly very transient, but there are one or two exceptions. Single-minded concentration plus emotion builds up an entity known as an artificial elemental, which reacts according to the nature of the emotion involved. There is usually a feedback process to the physical from an artificial elemental, and this is the reason why crowd behavior differs so greatly from the behavior of the individuals who go to make it up. A striking example is the lynch mob. The crowd concentrates with emotion on a single subject, the prisoner. An artificial elemental comes into being and begins a feedback of the hate which produced it. The emotion grows stronger and stronger until it discharges in the murder of the prisoner. Fortunately, the elemental of a loosely knit group like a mob is short-lived. It starves to death when the mob disbands. Given the same basic ingredients, hopefully with a less destructive emotion, an organized group tends to build an elemental with greater permanence. The feeling of awe which clings to an empty cathedral is an example of a powerful elemental built by ritual. The spasmodic aura of our wrath may possibly be the remnant of elementals building in the distant past. Many of these entities are formed quite unconsciously, but a skilled occultist might sometimes use the same ingredients to produce an elemental for some purpose of his own. Again, the elemental is neutral per se, but its purpose may be good or evil depending on the intention of the operator. And its nature may be love or hate, depending on the emotion which gave it birth. Closely associated with artificial elementals are shells. If any of you guys have read about the Kabbalah or the upside down tree, the Qliphoth, you should know about shells. These are forms taken on by independent entities, including humans, in order to operate on the astral and subsequently discarded. A trained occultist will destroy his shell after use. If he does not, it tends to disintegrate of its own accord. Although giving an immediate appearance of individuality, it is a mindless form and generally quite harmless, although some develop obsessing qualities for a time. Occasionally, shells are picked up by sensitives or mediums and mistaken for ghosts. A residue of personality characteristics may give them an appearance of sentience, but any communication with them is flat, colorless, and benign. With the shells, there are sometimes actual ghosts. The human personality will usually spend a period on the astral after death. The inner spirit clothes itself in astral substance, usually modeled on the physical body, and operates temporarily in a dream world. Again, mediumistic contact is possible and indeed appears quite common. Since the ghost astral environment is usually built up quite unconsciously and tailored to the individual outlook, descriptions of post-mortem mortem states drawn from these sources tend to vary widely. If a soul does not reincarnate, it will eventually pass beyond this astral dreamland. At the stage At that stage, a further interesting possibility arises. If the soul is sufficiently evolved, it can create an astral body to be worked by remote control, as it were. This establishes the possibility of communication with highly evolved entities on the common ground of the astral plane. A standard magical technique is to build a suitable astral form in the hope and expectation of attracting a higher force into it. And since the form can be built from above as well, it is true to say the various angelic and archangelic hierarchies, along with pagan gods and elder brethren of evolution, may also be experienced here. But the plane is not their natural habitat any more than it's yours or mine. The relevant astral levels can be the key to such curiosities as telepathy. Well, maybe you're right, Genevieve. But the establishment of telepathic rapport is on par with finding a particular stranger in a city the size of Tokyo. It can happen by pure luck, but the chances are against it. The astral is the home of the mysterious Akashic record, that mysterious book in which, according to occultists, all facts are written. Why this is so easy to see when you remember the astral extension through time. The medium takes on an impression of events so that it is only a question of hitting the right level to produce the relevant information. I rashly wrote only, but of course, this operation is as tricky as telepathy without training. Probably the easiest tap to the Akashic is through psychometry. To some people, this is a natural aptitude. Others require training. And because of its associations with the astral plane, a simple training system for this talent is given in the appendix of the book. If you have been paying close attention, it may by now have occurred to you that if angels can build astral bodies, so too can demons. And once you abandon superstition and romantic fiction, the problem of the infernal hierarchies become quite as difficult to understand as understanding angels. What is worse, investigation of these levels brings painful results. It is as well to leave the demons to Dennis Wheatley and take some consolation from the knowledge that demonic contact on the astral is quite unlikely. Rather, more likely and almost as frightening is the possibility of contact with one's own archetypes. Confrontation with personified personal unconscious contents can often have a salutary effect. This is one reason why self-knowledge is so important for an astral traveler. It is the ultimate defense against your own worst enemy. Woo! So he took a big jump there, didn't he? So this guy starts the book out, which I think is cool. He starts the book out explaining the imagination and its power in a way that you can all take seriously and understand. Then he gets in, kind of slowly dips his foot into the tattvas, then gets into the tarot, and then gets into the, the Kabbalistic tree of life. This guy's a magician because now he believes the astral is objective. He believes it works directly with the physical realm. He's brought up ceremonial magic like 5 or 6 times, and now he's talking about the elemental beings, the kings, and all this other stuff. So he's a magician. But I will tell you guys that don't practice magic, because I know some of you that listen are afraid of it, but you're interested in astral travel. You don't have to worry about it. You can stick with just the tattva cards and just some of the audio downloads that I have, or find your own tattva cards and listen to your own audios, however you want to do it. And just get yourself to the vibratory state. Peel your etheric body out a little bit, or enough to convince you. And that's going to change everything. Just that alone will change your entire paradigm. I don't care how long you've been holding on to your unconscious beliefs, if it's 10, 15, 20, 40, 50 years. Once you experience this, everything's going to change for you. Whether you go on to be like I am, where you're just obsessed with the out-of-body experience, or obsessed with magic and the occult, or you're just happy knowing that you're more than your physical body. something's going to change for sure. But we got to roll out of here. That is the end of the broadcast for this week. But let's see what chapters are left here. The next one is chapter 13, heightening the astral experience. So he talks quite a bit about God names and earth angels and elementals. That's a pretty long one, actually. The next one is the Astral Credo. I don't know what that is. Developing psychometry, and then it's over. So we don't have that much left. It's long enough to where I can't finish it tonight, though. But thank you guys for listening so much. I love each and every one of you. Thanks for coming here and hanging out with us. Please support us and the station, the radio show, the station, in any way you can so that we can keep going. Because I might have to, depending on how things go, I might have to switch to 1 or 2 nights a week, maybe 1 night a week. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But all of those that have supported Michael, brother, Bryce, Michael supports almost every week. And dude, I can't thank you enough for that, man. But I just don't know what to say, because you don't have to do that at all. I love you, man. Just when you come to Arkansas, make sure that you hit me up when you get here, so I can pay you back for some of this in my way. We'll find you a diamond or some cool crystals when you get here. All right. Good night, guys. Sweet dreams. Have a great weekend. I might release some content this weekend, if all things considered. And go check out the radio station. We might have to do an update, though, in the next few days. Hopefully not. But if the website's weird or choppy, that's because we're fighting that thing, that whatever attack that was, and we're trying to update it. All right. Night, y'all. Thanks for coming out. Sweet dreams.